everyone. Welcome back. We are about halfway through the day. I won't block anyone, so I'm just going to shimmy back. I want to thank our last panel where we were talking about hardware for ZK Future. You will remember that was Aleo Foundation's John Reynolds, VMA CEO Matt Fields, AMD Director of Product Hamid Saleheh, and Igo Yama's Simon. We are moving right along. As you can tell, we are tying the story together here. Each talk draws on the last. So far, we've unpacked the good that a ZK Future unlocks, but what are the challenges? ZK, like many technologies in this industry, is still considered niche or nascent. Everyone in this room is a first mover, but it all comes down to accessibility. Without a base standardization, there is little to stop known errors that have already been fleshed out from other blockchains, meaning that building an application using ZK can lead to latency, poor performance, and poor user experience. This lovely panel here is going to unpack that more for us. Joining us now is Aleo Foundation's head of BD, Joanna Zeng, Matt Wyatt, John Stevens, Haishel Dabian, and Kraya. No? It's you. Okay. Well, I apologize for messing that up. If I mess up one time today, I think that's okay. Join me in welcoming our panel.
Hi, everyone. So let's jump right into it, right? Why we are here today. We're here today because we're all excited about this groundbreaking technology called ZK. But as the MC has mentioned earlier, it's still a nascent technology, still considered as niche, because we are considered as a subgroup of the overall, developer community. The ZK developers are still, again, kind of a fraction of the total Web3 developers. So why is that, right? We talked about this accessibility and standardization, and also I think I would probably say it in my own words, it's more about the developer experience, right? DevX. So everybody here today, I think, except Mash actually, works on the Aleo, and Mash is part of the Risk Zero team, another ZK chain. So everybody here has experience firsthand building products that help, achieve a better DevX experience for the developers and unblocking that roadblock, right, for everyone who's interested in the ZK technology to unpack this complicated tech and find a way to realize its true potential. So I think with that preface, I wanted to say maybe just to give a quick introduction of your projects and just how you guys have been experiencing, right, as developers yourselves, the challenges, the gaps that you see in the infrastructure within the ZK space. And perhaps, Mesh can give us some specific examples on the Risk Zero side as well. I know you guys have a lot of experience comparing, Aleo with other L1 chains.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Haishel Dabian. I'm co-founder of Kraya Labs, and we're currently working on Obscura. So Obscura is a peer-to-peer marketplace for confidential data services. So what we want to do is enable the next generation of application developers to more easily get confidential data in their application. I think that sums it up.
Hi, I'm John. I'm the co-founder and the CTO of Veradice. So we are a blockchain security company. We've been doing audits in a lot of areas, not just Aleo, and so we've had a lot of experience auditing ZK circuits in a lot of different contexts. I was talking with people the other day, and I think that we've audited ZK circuits in 6 or 7 different languages now, and so we've seen a lot of different applications of ZK technology and how they're being integrated into different languages.
I'm Matt. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Puzzle. We are one of the 2 main wallets on Aleo. There's Leo Wallet and Puzzle Wallet. And can I get a quick raise of hands of who knows what Dave & Buster's is, or Chuck E. Cheese? Okay, so take that same concept of an arcade where you play games and you could win prizes for those games. And we're not just any old wallet. That's what we're trying to do with our wallet as well. So in addition to just being a general wallet, on Aleo, we have an SDK for people to build Aleo dApps, but more specifically, some multi-party hidden information games like Sudoku, crossword puzzles, etc. And then we have a Shopify integration with Aleo, so you can actually connect those with real-world businesses and have a little digital version of Dave & Buster's in the wallet.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. I'm really excited to be here, and I've been following Aleo's journey over the past few years through my friends who have been working on this project from Blockchain at Berkeley, so it's really full circle to be here. My name is Mosh. I work at growth at Risk Zero. I actually joined very recently, but I've been obviously lurking in the ZK space for a while. At Risk Zero, our kind of mandate is essentially to build the universal zero knowledge layer for all developers who want to deploy ZK applications. Our goal is really to not just build, roll-ups, L1s, or applications, but really to decentralize and to create accessible infrastructure and virtual machines so devs can deploy their applications and go from 0 to 1 in a matter of weeks, if not days. Some of the main kind of components that we're working on is our general purpose ZK VM, which is primarily, supports Rust programs, and we are primarily trying to go to the Rust ecosystem and bring in devs from there, and then expand to the Go ecosystem and the C++ ecosystems as well. And then on top of that, we have also deployed Bonsai, which is our remote proving service. So, is that me? Hope not. So, if you don't want to run the ZK VM locally on your computer, you can, of course, ping our AWS servers and get your proofs and go to market as fast as possible. So, yeah, excited to chat more about DevX and how we can bring accessibility to the forefront. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, let's dive into that. I think, ZK has been a technology that's been around for a while, and most recently found its product market fit with scalability and privacy, right? So, but again, just to draw back on the point I made earlier, we haven't seen more adoption. So, what is the current state of the infra ecosystem within ZK? And again, maybe for the folks on these three folks over here who are building on Aleo, you can specifically talk about the challenges you've seen and how your project addressed those gaps. And for Mash, you can talk about your experience with Zero.
I think there's a lot of problems that we've seen developers run into with ZK. So like I said, we've looked at people who have been developing ZK circuits in a number of different languages, including Aleo. And one thing that we've seen is, in a lot of these languages, very similar problems end up popping up, and people are creating new languages like Aleo and Risk Zero in order to kind of tackle those problems. So in low-level languages like Circom, Halo 2, Plunky 2, where you're designing the low-level ZK circuit, one thing that you commonly see is people creating under-constrained circuits where people can basically manipulate circuit inputs arbitrarily. After that, we've seen an evolution where people have been creating new languages where a person only has to write one piece of code, and it will, generate, or it will create your witness generator and your constraints, and the compiler theoretically should ensure that everything is correct. But at the same time, because this is how your program is now set up, these languages inherit some of the drawbacks that you get from ZK. So for example, ZK doesn't allow arbitrary looping behavior. You have to use recursion and stuff like that. And that can be a big drawback for developers because now programming features that they're used to, like conditionals, loops, that sort of thing, become much harder to create. And in addition to that, with these higher level languages, performance becomes a bigger bottleneck because it's harder to actually go and hand optimize the constraints, which unfortunately is what you have to do right now. I would say the other thing that is a major problem here is the lack of tooling support for many of these languages, because debugging support is awful. You have very few tools that developers can use, like static analyzers and stuff like that, in order to tackle these challenges. And so my particular area is formal methods, where we create tools to find bugs in other tools. And one thing that we've been working with Aleo for is a static analyzer for Aleo that will automatically identify certain types of common vulnerabilities like privacy leaks. And I think tools like this, as well as testing tools, which I think someone else is working on, is crucial to, is crucial for developers, because they want a very similar developer experience to what they have in a more conventional programming language.
So yeah, from our end, so we've been building decentralized applications since 2017. So we've kind of seen, let's say, the more established ecosystems, the Ethereums of this world, grow in the amount of tooling available. So in the early days, it was pretty tough to even deploy an application. You didn't have all of the services you have right now. So we've seen RPC came along, we've seen indexing tools came along, and all of these tools that just make the entire development experience a lot smoother. And I think if I look at where we are right now in the ZK space, we are in maybe the 2017 era compared to the Ethereum world. So from our end, building ZK applications, we've had to jump through the many hoops that we did in 2017 to realize those applications currently right now. And that is also the area that we're focusing in. So getting just on-chain data easily to your application, getting off-chain data to your application. That is the goal of Obscura, to create a marketplace and the conditions for service providers to provide services to the consumers. So that's been our end of the goal, let's say.
Yeah, and I think from our end as like a wallet, and obviously with the arcade stuff that I was trying to mention before, actually maybe an example here. Can I get a raise of hands who has a social media profile on any of the various social medias right now? Is it the majority of people in this room? Okay. What about in 2000? They technically existed. So the point I'm trying to drive home there is that like the highest level of user adoption, which is like widespread level of like social media user adoption, it's kind of like slowly and then all at once. Does everyone kind of join the network? It's like small businesses, for instance, didn't go online immediately. It wasn't until like Google Maps came around and they started seeing like, oh, people are looking at Yelp reviews to decide where they want to go, or oh, people need to find my phone number for my business. They started like actually going online. They weren't like an internet native business model, but they had a reason to go online. So at like the highest level of adoption there that we look at as like a wallet and trying to do these like fun things, that's like one lens that we look at it through. Another lens that we look at it on like a technical level as a wallet is like to give back to an old internet era day was like, does anyone ever remember buying software CDs at like Office Max and then having to download your software via CD? So right now with the wallet and zero knowledge proving, it is very hard to do on-client proving depending on like similar. It's hard, and it's similar to the CD example because you didn't have the gigabytes and bandwidth to be able to like download software that amount. You just had to like actually hand it off to someone. So it's interesting to see like, we have built delegated proving. We also have on-client proving, but we find limits with on-client proving depending on the program size and how can we cache keys that sometimes are gigabytes in size, and how much does that delay performance. And then you have people like RiskZero that are running whole proving networks that are like outsourced proving for stuff. So yeah, there's infrastructure bottlenecks there that are also analogous to like the early internet times.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think we are definitely we're coming up to like an inflection point, and like that inflection point really depends on how we as an industry are able to like really sell our value prop, not only at the infrastructure layer but also at the application layer to like just folks that are abstracted away from this tech. from the infrastructure perspective, like Risk Zero's kind of mission has been also to abstract away the complexity of building circuits itself. And that's why, we went with the RISC-V kind of choice for our ISA architecture. And we're essentially, what it essentially did was like open up the the ecosystem of devs that we could cater to, which was the Rust ecosystem, and now we are providing more support for Go, and eventually we'll be providing more support for C++. And so essentially, like, our kind of goal was, devs can just trust kind of the programs that they have written, and then they can like push that guest program through our VM, generate the proofs that they need, and go to market as fast as possible. Of course, bottlenecks that we face again are performance optimizations, and some of the sentiment like in the industry really, as I've been like talking to partners, is very a wait and see approach right now. Partners are very much, they're looking to see who's going to come out on top with the cost and the speed kind of benchmarks. And those benchmarks are really hard. Like, as you've brought up kind of the problem of standardization, I think there needs to be more of a community effort when it comes to like benchmarking. Sometimes, like, internally we're just like kind of at a loss. Like, we can benchmark it against our own machines, but like, ultimately that doesn't matter, right? Like, we need to have like kind of a consensus and a consortium of like ZK folks who are like agreeing to our benchmarks and third-party reviewing and auditing it as well. So yeah, how do we kind of get kind of a more community effort going around benchmarking, more community working groups, more peer-reviewed kind of benchmarks as well is very, very important. Sometimes it also kind of feels like, I think like with the way that EVM has really taken off, and with Risk Zero initially catering to like Rust devs, but we do have support for EVM. I mean, we are 70% compatible with the first 1,000 like Rust crates, and you can run mini ZK EVM within our VM. We are working on Zeth, which is like our Type 0 ZK EVM. Essentially, we are converting fault proofs on top of OP into fraud proofs and creating ways that they can be upgradable and verifiable, specifically for like creating more verifiable ETH blocks, and making that computationally, more cost-effective and accessible to folks. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, people are taking a wait-and-see approach. People want to see who wants to come out on top, and people want something that is good, cheap, and fast. But that trilemma itself is like very hard to solve for. And so we're kind of noticing that, like, okay, from like a speed perspective, what's kind of the threshold for developers? How long are they willing to wait for a proof? And then from a cost perspective, which is actually even more important for builders right now in this space, how low can we go? And how does decentralization, especially creating more decentralization, proving marketplaces, decentralized proving networks, how does that kind of lower the threshold and lower the barriers of entry for builders? So those are some of the big things that we've been working on. Within our like VM, some other features that we're also looking into is like proof composition. So how do we actually, again, from an abstracted way, help developers build more complex applications on top of our ZK VM, not just run like a hello world guest program. And yeah, how do we also, maximize kind of the computation size of the proof itself, and help developers leverage like their hardware as best as possible. So continuations has been one of the innovations that we've been kind of deploying since last year, and then we're continuing to do optimizations on top of that, and where like we're trying to bring like parallel proving and boundless computation to our proofs as well.
Yeah, that actually brought up a really good point, which we see at Aleo as well, right? So you mentioned a lot of community effort and working groups, right, mm-hmm. to build consensus, to find ways to standardize these DevX tools. Actually, as a lot of folks in this room may know, because a lot of you are grantees of Aleo, we have actually tackled this nice, quote unquote, nice problem, right? Because it shows the signs of maturation of this ecosystem. Now we have multiple wallets and multiple RPC endpoints, indexers, et cetera, with different technical designs, but ultimately tackling the similar issues. I wanted to direct that question at the three gentlemen on the panel. How has that experience been when you work with others, in the ecosystem that's also working on infra? Do you guys kind of have regular check-ins and develop, similar sort of that standardization discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at the space, the lack of standardization or infrastructure is making that a lot of players are doing a lot of redundant work, let's say from the context of the entire ecosystem. So we're talking a lot to the teams and figuring out those requirements. We are starting in a centralized manner right now. So we're just building, say, advanced APIs and building the common, the common tech that is required for, I guess, more common applications that we're already familiar with. But as we progress to a later phase, you're going to need to decentralize the stack. Talking to a lot of the builders, trying to find common ground, and then, catering as we're getting towards mainnet to be mainnet ready and serve as many teams as possible. Yeah.
I think one thing that we've seen is that there have been people in the Aleo ecosystem who have been struggling because they don't have standards at this point. So one example is, as an auditing company, we're not necessarily building ourselves. Most of the stuff that we're doing is to support the Aleo ecosystem. But as an auditing company, we do see a lot of code. And one thing that we've seen a lot of is people who are building, applications that look similar to others on other blockchains, so like ERC20s on Solidity and stuff like that. And so one thing that you can see in Aleo is there are, or at least the last time I checked, several open suggestions for an ARC20 specification.
Our own version, ARC. Aleo.
Got your own version with privacy, which is great. However, a lot of builders are trying to develop applications right now, and so we've seen several people just decide to go ahead and adopt one because they don't know which one is actually going to be used, and that is going to make it difficult for the ecosystem going forward because some of these applications might have bet on the wrong one. And so then they're going to have to either deal with their protocol not being, in this case, able to interact with tokens or some tokens, or they're going to have to re-implement everything.
I actually have the opposite side of that.
I was just going to comment. We are actually working very closely on that with the wallets. We have a working group that works on the standardization that is adopted by all. But go ahead, Matt. You have direct experience.
Yeah, I mean, just our experience building on Aleo 2 has been a lot of changes in the past 2 years, especially between testnet 2 to testnet 3, and until a mainnet goes, it's kind of what is the best standard really depends on a use case, and it's important for everyone to be in discussion, but it may be way more fluid than, okay, if we decided on an ARC standard in testnet 2, out the window. If there are different changes or requirements to the network that may mean that you can't use the ARC that same way, and you just spent so much time going down that rabbit hole instead of hey, you know what, I actually need to do this, this, and this that's actually closer to an L2 style thing on Aleo, then you just kill. Maybe you need to batch more proofs or batch more transactions. You need some pre-confirmation type thing that everyone recognizes beforehand because it's just very fluid.
Sure.
And that's
I mean, it's basically flexibility versus you're basically what you're talking about is improving the flexibility of Aleo, right? As Aleo continues to evolve, you might want to incorporate new features. However, it's also, as new features get integrated and these specifications get evolved, you still need to make sure that there is some sort of backwards compatibility. And so that's what's useful for developers so that as they develop, they don't have to redo a lot of their work. Mm-hmm. And for some of the people that we've audited so far, there is a concern that if the ARC or there was one ARC20 specification in particular that if that one was adopted, at least one of the people that we audited would have to do a lot of re-engineering. I think that's the concern that I'm bringing up, that yes, flexibility is great, but also kind of agreeing on a base that everyone can agree should be in the ARC20 specification, and then working on improvements that build on top of that base.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that it's one of those cases where it's definitely both. It's like teams should like not plan too hard. Like every team should like coalesce around like, hey, this is something that we should use at least for the time being, and you should plan on this one. But also, please everyone keep each other in the loop around like if things don't work. Like we've been in talks with the ARC20 thing because we've done multi-sig things, game-related things that have turned into like, hey, this ARC20 doesn't work, but we can refactor our way so that maybe it's just an extension on top of this ARC20 spec. But it's something that we had to figure out by building it and then being like, yeah. So.
That's all the time we have. We have to continue this interesting debate in the corner. But give it up for our panelists today, please.
And I'm just going to thank each of you because I really didn't do a good job with the names at the beginning. So thank you to our panel. We have Aleo Foundation's head of BD, Joanna Zeng, Puzzle CEO, Matt Wyatt, Verity CTO, John Stevens, Krya co-founder, Haishal Davian, and Risk Zero head of growth, Mash Mutmaina. Thank you, guys.